Welcome back to the Explanation Pro. Today I'll recap an action, thriller film called In the Blood. Spoilers incoming. One night in 2002, 14-year-old Ava from Bridgeport, Connecticut, is awakened in the middle of the night and sees her drug lord father murdered by two masked intruders before grabbing a shotgun and gunning down the two assailants. 12 years later, Ava is set to marry the affluent Derek Grant in Arlington, Virginia, with the pair's first meeting at Narcotics Anonymous gatherings. During the lavish wedding, his father, Robert, sets up a lawyer to arrange a prenuptial agreement before they start. He tears the document apart, saying he does not need an exit strategy. His sister, Sandy, on the other hand, busies herself with being Ava's bridesmaid and formally welcomes her into the family as she walks her down the aisle. After the ceremony, the newlyweds fly off for their honeymoon to a Caribbean island where Derek's family owns a rustic summer home. He shows her pictures of his youth, including one of his late mother. After settling in, they go out for activities around the island, including a drive on the ATV, fishing, swimming, jet skiing, and a game of pool at the local bar. One evening, the couple goes out for dinner by the seaside. They befriend a young local named Manny, who is friendly to Americans having a family living in Texas. He entices them to dance at a nightclub. Big Biz, the local criminal, is also there, unwinding with a few women. He approaches Ava as he pushes Derek inside to get her to dance with him. Manny tries to hold him until he punches Derek in the face. She immediately gets into a violent fight with several patrons as the encounter is recorded. The club owner, Silvio Lugo, reprimands Big Biz for his behavior, as Manny and the couple leave exhausted. Memories of her teenage years start to flood, describing her rough life of drug and alcohol addiction. An old man named Casey trains her to fight for her to go beyond her limits. Ava awakens the following day, holding on to her husband tight. Just then, Manny comes over to invite her and Derek to ride El Viudador, also known as the Widowmaker, a mile-long zip line in the rainforest, as a respite from what happened the other night. Once there, Ava, afraid of heights, declines to go down the line, but Derek does, after seeing Manny easily make it across. As he starts vlogging his experience, his harness suddenly snaps while descending. Manny returns for him while letting him latch on as they slowly pull to the other side. Unfortunately, Derek loses his grip, making him plummet to the ground. Jojo, the safety instructor, calls for help while Ava rushes down the jungle canopy to find her husband unconscious and severely injured but alive. He is immediately brought on a stretcher and loaded in an ambulance, where EMTs prevent Ava from coming along due to liability issues. She eventually follows closely behind on a motorbike and reaches Centro Medico Hospital by nightfall. As she asks about Derek, the receptionist denies he was brought in. Ava goes on a wild goose chase for her husband as she visits the island's other clinics and medical facilities and finds no one by his name admitted in their databases. After alerting her sister-in-law, Ava goes to the police around 1 a.m. to declare him missing. Her plight is not prioritized as other missing persons are being filed, so she sits in the waiting room exasperated. At home, she dreams about Casey again, where he tries to heal her wounds while saying her scars will toughen her up. She awakens to see Derek's family arrive on the island, frantic over his disappearance. Later, Police Chief Ramon Garza tries deciphering what happened at the zipline. The police take her to the site, but the owner has no recollection of being open the day Derek fell and denies that he knows anyone involved. When they question Jojo, Ava freaks out when he contradicts her story, saying they have never met. After an altercation, the owner kicks them all out to avoid turning away customers in the queue. Back at the station, the chief shows her a cell phone recording and warrants an explanation on why she fought Big Biz, a man known for eliminating anyone who interferes with his business. Realizing the police will not help much further, she starts to look on her own and sets up missing person posters to ask people around the island. When she gets home, she plays a video of her husband's disappearance reported by the local news. Meanwhile, as Robert sulks on the sofa, he interrogates Ava, sharing his suspicions that she killed his son over a misunderstanding and that she is trying to cash in his family's funds. She remains defiant as she insults him and reaffirms her love for Derek. After the family departs the island, Ava confronts Jojo again at the zipline, threatening to drop him straight into the forest if he doesn't confess Derek's whereabouts. Her encounter is caught on a GoPro video, and she ends up back in the police station. With the knowledge of Manny's cell phone number, she begs Chief Garza to search for Manny and get him to talk. Just then, he orders his officers to arrest her and send her back to Porta, deeming her no longer welcome on the island. On the ferry, she hatches a plan to escape, So as she gets escorted to the women's restroom, she breaks the officer's skull and grabs his key before freeing herself. Ava jumps off the ferry and swims back to the island as she hides in a hotel room as one of the paid guests. Returning to the nightclub in disguise, she spots Manny partying with some women. She follows him to the bathroom, where he beats him and dunks his head in the toilet for information. Fearing for his life, he confesses that an island syndicate group is behind the disappearance. After a while, he takes her to his place to discuss her next move while apologizing for not being able to help. The following day, the pair travel to Otrobando, and with a copy of the police sketches, they identify a sign that is written similarly to the tattoo of one of the suspects. They end up outside a cockfighting arena, where Manny surveys the area for Tito, responsible for driving the ambulance that had Derek. Later, the suspect comes out with his girlfriend, so she follows his car into the slums of Santo Cerro, despite the warnings that the area is dangerous. After a scuffle with the man, she knocks him out in his underwear and interrogates him over Derek's whereabouts at night. He relents after getting stabbed multiple times and confesses his brother Omar orchestrated the whole thing and bought his silence. She decides to text him with his phone, and he comes over to the spot almost immediately. As he sees his brother tied up, Ava knocks him out from behind with a big pipe, and they briefly fight until she manages to grab his gun and shoot him. Despite all efforts to interrogate them about Derek, she gets arrested and thrown in a holding cell for the rest of the night. Early next day, after confronting Ava on last night's ordeal, Chief Garza lets her out and orders 2 police officers to have her locked up in prison for the murder of Omar, a capital offense on the island. Before she is locked in the police cruiser, she begs him to continue finding her husband. Unfortunately, by nightfall, she sees from inside the police cruiser that the officers are attempting to kill her and bury her in an isolated spot in the desert. She manages to break free her right hand from her cuffs unnoticed and suddenly strikes back at the officers, slitting one of them by the throat and killing another with a shovel. Meanwhile, Garza gets a phone call while in bed, only to hear Ava's voice via Officer Santos' cell phone. He arms himself with a revolver before heading to his daughter's room after hearing that she requests him to meet her there. Feeling terrified, he quickly runs to see her aiming her gun at his daughter, much to his horror. Fearing for his daughter's life, Garza surrendered his sidearm and finally confessed that he was responsible for Derek's disappearance. Although admitting that what he did was wrong, he owes Dr. Elbar after he helped save his daughter from this one health problem on the day she was born, ensuring that he will not tell anyone else about his wife's pregnancy. When Ava presses again about where Derek is, he explains that the doctor made a mistake about handling his broken bones and puncturing his artery. After failing to save her husband, Garza was begged by Elbar to lie to the rest of the staff and witnesses that Derek didn't make it to the hospital, as well as attempting to silence her, otherwise, the American government would terminate his clinic, much to Ava's grief. Feeling overwhelming guilt for what he had done to the couple, the chief commits suicide before she exits his house, leaving a trail of bloody footprints on the floor. At Manny's house, Ava started weeping heavily over the fact that she had lost her husband. After getting comforted by Manny, Ava rests before making her final move to make the doctor pay for his wrongdoing. In the morning, Ava makes it to the hospital entrance and kills a female attendant with a chokehold before grabbing her ID and hiding her body in the vehicle. Inside the hospital, Ava finds Elbar in the washroom and wraps his face inside a red plastic bag while interrogating what has become of Derek's body. Ultimately, as he begs for his life, he asks Ava to look at the surveillance screens. As she looks at the real-time live view from outside the hospital, she is surprised and sees that Derek actually made it and is in a wheelchair being hauled into the hospital by a group of men led by Silvio Lugo. Shocked and infuriated by how the doctor lied to Chief Garza over her husband's so-called death, she jams her gun into his jaw, only to be given one last chance to save her husband. Meanwhile, the men escorting Derek reach the operations floor to greet the doctor and Ava, posing as a nurse going by the name of Christy. Silvio is initially enamored by her beauty, as he makes inappropriate advances on her while searching her for anything suspicious. In the surgical room, he puts Derek on the bed as he prepares to be taken some blood. Ava attempts to put the Lugo to sleep before pulling out a gun and subduing all of his men, injuring most of them badly before getting her husband back on his feet. Silvio explains that he is suffering from a rare form of cancer called multiple myeloma. He bribed Elbar to find capable donors with stem cells with effective transfusions with bone marrow to help suppress his cancer, considering that Derek is one of those donors. Nevertheless, Ava and her husband make their way out of the operations room, but not before getting caught up in a gunfight with several of Silvio's men in the hospital corridors. After shooting one of the men in the head, she takes him in her arms, and they head straight for the elevator to the ground floor. Silvio spots them as they make it to the back exit, only to get caught in an explosion caused by her shooting the oxygen tanks. She grabs him to keep his thugs at bay while successfully shooting one of them in the head. The couple finds a car to escape on, as they bring Silvio along as cover. The injured gang leader makes small talk and tries to make Ava understand his situation, only to be punched in the face. Just then, he jumps off the vehicle and rides back with his henchmen, who make a steady chase. Along the way, they get help from Manny via texts, as a group of kids appear along the road and use all sorts of contraptions to keep Lugo and his gang of criminals at bay. As the criminals pursue them to a nearby village, Ava and Derek cross the river with a wooden raft, catch up with Manny, and go straight to his place to hide. Silvio arrives and holds Manny by the neck to get him to fess up. Just then, he gets annoyed by the loud music outside the home and attempts to stop it. His men continue searching around the neighborhood when Ava comes out to take down one of the henchmen, hiding his body in a child's bedroom. Derek also manages to subdue one of the goons in the bathroom. As Silvio asks around for the couple, he comes across the dead bodies of more henchmen. As he peers in a keyhole, she bursts out the door and the two fight. Police arrive as Ava struggles to get the upper hand over Silvio wielding a knife. Meanwhile, Manny texts Big Biz to come over and help. As a crowd gathers, she uses him as a shield with his knife to his neck, keeping officers away while they handcuff Derek. Big Biz arrives and surprisingly takes the knife from Ava and cuts Lugo's throat, killing him. He makes a deal to pay the cops twice what Silvio offered, then tells her and her husband to leave the island and go home. Manny, wishing them to return soon, escorts them to a boat, taking them to Puerto Rico. Ava and Derek look onto the horizon as their hellish ordeal is finally over. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and also subscribe my channel for more videos like this. See you in the next video.